Where are we moving to? We're moving over to, we're going to jail. We're going to jail is next. The AEW program from October 15th. They had an answer to the big angle. Seth Rollins booted out of the Vision, shocking moments, shakeups in the WWE. So they decided to go send a couple of their guys to have a talk in jail. Okay, but before we get there, they started the show. And folks, again, the new ratings arrangements, methodology, whatever, kerfluffle, we don't have any numbers on this thing yet because they're taking longer and they're giving us less. But they started the show with the footage of Ibushi's injury from Collision. Then they did 1 million graphics for matches that were upcoming. And then they did a sit down in the back with Renee Moxley Good and Chris Statlander and Tony Storm. It's almost like, and again, I'm not even knocking, I know Tony Storm's over. I'm not even knocking her there. But it's almost like they don't give a shit or he just doesn't understand. Again, another thing that Vince used to beat into everybody's head up there. Get started with the action, pal. Get into the action. And yes, I know they've modified that in recent times with a 20-minute promo segment at the start of the show, but at least those are live in front of the people with some of the major stars in the business. They do a pre-tape followed by a bunch of graphics with announcer voiceovers, followed by a couple of the girls sitting down in the back. Is that something that hooks the audience? I took some of Vince's teachings to me 30 years ago when he still had his faculties. When I structured a program, if I needed a live interview with my 2 top guys or 2 main event level talents, I would do a match at the start of the program to get the people hooked on some action and billboard what was going on in the show at the same time. And then in Seg 2, you'd bring in the live interview segment. And at least it wouldn't be just talking at the top of the program. But nevertheless, they didn't just talk. They did attempted comedy and shtick that wasn't serious. And now even the announcer's in on it. Whereas Statlander recited a memorized statement that she had possibly written herself.
Terrible.
With very overly flowery verbiage. And this whole thing was like a lot of the program. And that's their problem. It was a scene from a bad independent movie. Because now they think they're filmmakers and actors and producers. Instead, it's not even a wrestling show. It's a goddamn a workshop with independent auteurs who occasionally stop to have a fucking wrestling match. Tell me I'm wrong, Brian.
Oh, no, I hated this. And again, my first thought before they even started the acting was I can't believe they were going to begin the show with this kind of dead set in the back with Renee. And then they all started hamming it up. And I'm like, oh, this is terrible. And then Statlander. At least Tony Storm, whatever you want to say.
She can deliver preposterous shit.
She is committed to the ridiculous Tony Storm character. And everything she says, you kind of believe that she potentially could be a nutty Tony Storm character. Statlander, it was like someone auditioning for a movie for a role they're never going to get. It was so fake. It was so bad. And then somehow the segment kept getting worse. And then it just went out to the ring.
Well, and before we go to the ring, I'm not trying to just put the boots to Chris Statlander. She's got...
But she couldn't speak natural. She couldn't.
Well, that's the thing. She's got athletic ability. She's had potential. She's been stuck there forever with these indie-minded clowns, and nobody's working with her to develop the things that need to be developed. And especially Chris, what I've said before about we need a degree of difficulty of 5 and an execution of 10 instead of the other way around goes for promos too. It's not only not real, but it's not script writing that's worthy of, it's just. eh, So then they go out, they just say, all right, is the interview over? Now meet me in the ring. And they go to the ring and they have a fight. And then after they've been fighting, Tony Storm takes the title belt and tosses it to Statlander. And then Tony Storm gets on her knees with her hands behind her back and dares Statlander to hit her. But Statlander, the heel, won't hit her and puts the belt down. And then they start doing wrestling spots again. How about ducks and go behinds and German suplex, whatever. And then Statlander grabs the belt and hands it to Tony Storm, and Statlander gets on her knees. This is hit me. What the fuck is going on here? What movie did they see that they are replicating, or what Japanese wrestling moment, or what the fuck? Tony Storm won't hit her. Gave her the belt back and kissed her on the head and walked out. So they had a fight. Then one said, no, I want you to knock me out. But the other one wouldn't. So they did wrestling spots. Then the other one said, I want you to knock me out. But that one wouldn't. So then she kissed her and left. This is the worst, fakest wrestling show ever on the air. And now we report on it simply because I know a lot of you don't watch it, and we've got the comments where it's like, we're just entertained by hearing you say what they did. And that's we have to just report now on what the fuck they're doing. And it gets worse. It's more entertaining to hear about it than it is to watch it.
And it's going to get worse because if quarter-hour ratings go away, Tony doesn't have any incentive to book for anything other than what he thinks for the overall show. There's no more minute by minute, no more quarter by quarter. It changes the way he's going to write this show, and it's already a disaster.
Well, explain this next one to me, Brian, because we had Ricochet's Stooges, Tia Leone and Bishop Khan with Ricochet against the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin with MVP in a tag team match. Draw me a diagram of this program. Now, they had a 6-man tag where the baby faces lost, which led to a 6-man street fight where the baby faces won. But now they're back to having a regular tag team match. And in the middle of that program with the 6-mans, the Ricochet Stooges also got beat in a tag team title match before they could come and do the job in the 6-man. Is this the way this shit's supposed to go?
Oh, no.
So they got in a 4-way, and Leone and Lashley had a double knockout on the floor. And Shelton suplexed Khan off the top rope, and then MVP started trying to fend Ricochet off, but his cane flew out of his hand and landed in the ring. So the referee gets the cane and is admonishing MVP, and behind his back, Ricochet comes in, runs across the ring, and clotheslines Shelton Benjamin while he's on the ground already. And then outside the ring, MVP leveled Ricochet. The camera missed that. But the point is, Khan covers Shelton Benjamin 1, 2, 3. So Shelton Benjamin was beaten by one clothesline from a midget because he had just given the goddamn big move. Right? And then suddenly Ricochet comes in, the smallest guy in the fucking whole deal, runs across the ring and clotheslines Shelton once. And Shelton lays there while the other shit goes on, and then Bishop Khan covers him 1, 2, 3. So these other guys that can't lay down for a hand grenade, and that's a 2 count, but Shelton one clothesline from the smallest guy in the fucking company. Well, that's an exaggeration, considering this company. You see what I'm saying here?
This whole feud, what the fuck? This whole feud, I mean, again, they're trying to elevate GOA, I guess. I don't know if it's really taking. Ricochet, is he like kind of like a Michael Hayes manager? Where he's a wrestler, but they keep him out of the ring and he acts like a Weasley heel manager? But then you're supposed to take him seriously as a wrestler? I don't think any of this has done the Hurt Syndicate any favors. I don't know what they're going to do with the Hurt Syndicate, but I kind of want this feud to go away.
Boy, just think if they'd just been able to keep MJF in the group, we could have all kinds of interesting shit going on. But MJF has gone Hollywood. The longer he can stay away from this bowl of fruits and nuts, the better off I think he'll be. At least he's not in jail, which we can't say about the other two. All right, here's the deal. Apparently, Darby Allin and Dick the Boozer got in a fight at a Comic-Con, and they showed the footage of this. And so, therefore, the announcers announced that they were going to have one more face-to-face chance to tell each other what they think of each other at an undisclosed location earlier today. This face-to-face took place. And they go to the tape, and it's a jail visitation window. Or actually, when they closed one of the doors at one point, it said booking. But they knew somebody's friends with a cop, the county jail, wherever the fuck, I don't know where this was, but it wasn't something they built for this because they build things out of drywall with no studs, and this was an actual legitimate concrete room with bulletproof glass and the thing you talk through and the doors that close and the little desk. Yeah, any prison movie you've ever seen. And first of all, why would this be an undisclosed location otherwise than the cops don't want anybody to know what they use their official headquarters for? But where the fuck else was this supposed to be? Does anything else in the world look like this but a jail, Brian?
I mean, maybe the bank? I don't know. There's very few options.
No, there's no bank that looks like you're going into a goddamn holding cell because you're drunk.
Well, I'm talking about the two-way talk.
No,
window.
there's no, not even a drive up, and nobody was in a car here. They put it because they thought, again, they think they're filmmakers. They had the spooky lighting and they had the dramatic music, ba-boom, boom, ba-boom, boom, ba-boom, boom. And they were making they've seen a movie with a scene where the guys were talking to each other through the window. They're actors, they're talents. And the thing is, Moxley's promos, again, are gibberish. And after a year, however long it's been, nobody knows what his motivation is, what all this ha-ha is about. But he sounds like he means it. But Darby Allin is a troubled teenager trying to audition for a part, like you said earlier, he's not going to get. It's all the fucking things that he thinks of in his head that are cool. If you were actually a big movie star and could act, but instead you're a goofy wrestler and it sounds stupid. And I wrote, I don't know if this is phonier or sillier or how stunning it is that they think they're all Oscar worthy. But it went on, and I was starting to give up and to fast forward when suddenly Moxley is in the one room, Darby's in the other room on the other side of the glass, and suddenly Pac comes into Darby's room and doesn't just beat him up, but he bounces his head off of the walls until they've splattered red food coloring all over the window. Like he was just bashing his brains out against the wall. It's a horror movie. And how are you going to get away with goddamn committing felonious assault in jail? And where else would this have been if it wasn't in jail? And why did the cameraman that was obviously on Darby's side because they got a shot outside the door when Pac left, why didn't he say, they're killing this guy? They're making a fucking bad movie with a big budget of somebody else's money.
Sports-based wrestling. That was the AEW promise, and now it's just bad TV. It's TNA of a few years ago. It's just not good. It's not good.
It was like they were shooting a remake of Last House on the Left with Darby being bashed into bloody bits. Just with the impressive camera work where you can see the blood splattering, but not the actual damage.
See, the problem is these guys come up with these bad ideas, and then Tony Khan is not the person that will ever say no. He may not even, I don't even think Tony recognizes these are bad segments or bad skits or bad acting. But even if he did, he couldn't say no. And that's the problem with a lot of this stuff in wrestling right now. It's stuff to make the wrestlers happy, not stuff to make the fans happy. And segments like this are for these guys to feel like they're actors. Because it wasn't going to cause anyone to say, I got to really see this match now. Maybe they'll do the match in 4K. I mean, what would you say? Nothing.
Well, but don't worry. If this didn't make them see the match, Brian, they're going to get another chance because they're going to beat Darby up again here later on, see? So, because he's not in the hospital with brain damage. He was just momentarily stunned by having his melon bashed into a concrete wall over and over until blood splattered all over the walls. But you know what I was in the mood for right about now, Brian? I'm going to tell you, to be honest, I was hungry.
Oh, really?
I wanted a good quality meal. I'm thinking there's nothing that just trips my trigger on and whets my appetite like seeing Darby Allin pummeled into a bowl of grape jelly. But you know, sometimes, Brian, you just don't have time to fix everything from scratch because, you know, we've got to wait and see later on in the program when they bash Darby into grape jelly again. So I wanted something quick. And that's why I love meals from Factor. Yes, folks, our friends at Factor are factored back in, and their chef-prepped, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious, no matter how grisly and gory your wrestling show might get. And now, remember we've told you about Factor many times in the past, but everything has changed. It's new. There's more variety. There's more meals. You can choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp. And by the way, have you tried the new swordfish cutlets, Brian? Those, along with the eggs of whale sperm,
what?
At no extra cost, are amazing. The eggs of whale sperm.
They don't have the eggs of whale sperm. I don't even know where you come up with some of these things. They've never had them in stock, but Jim, you brought up a very important point. I have to say, we've done a lot of business with Factor in the past. I've never, ever enjoyed the meals I got from them like I did the last batch. And like you said, for the first time, you can really customize and pick exactly which meals you want. And I got just the tastiest salmon, and I got a bunch of great chicken. And
what did you name him?
I really want them to send more, I guess is my point. It was so delicious. Yes. But thankfully,
well,
I can get more.
You need them to send more salmon because your salmon that you already have needs friends. Can't just grow up a lonely salmon. And Stacy is doing the low carb options, and they're in the tray for you.
I did protein.
You just
plus.
pop them in
Protein plus.
Well, that's because you're a growing boy. You just pop them in a microwave, heat them up. They're now more GLP-1 friendly meals, so you can get friendlier with your GLP medication. And the new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats, like Fats Waller and Minnesota Fats. And you can savor global flavors. For the first time, you can try Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, Hong Kong, and the Pacific Rim, including some parts of Bolivia. And for more choices to better
not
nutrition,
the Pacific Rim.
folks,
No, it doesn't. No.
that's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. 97% say that helped them live a healthier life. The other 3%, obviously, there's going to be some collateral damage, folks, but feel the difference no matter your routine. With our friends at Factor, and that you can, it's not a hectic thing to do. Like, you know, when you're sitting down and you're trying to do these impressive and extravagant meals, you know, the baked Dalmatian flanks with curried dressing. You don't have time in today's hurry scurry world. Just pop the Factor in and eat something that a chef has made rather than something that you have crafted yourself. And right now, save money. Eat smart at factormeals.com/JCE50off. That is the code, JCE50off. The reason why is you're going to get 50% off your first box and free breakfast for 1 year. Holy shit. Can you imagine all the eggs and sides of bacon and just multiple cartloads of sausage and fried potatoes and eggs and gravy?
You're just naming food. It doesn't mean that's part of any of their meals. So let's
that's
stick
just
to the
if
facts,
you had
man.
free breakfast for 1 year. Holy mackerel. Well, but nevertheless, JCE50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That doesn't include the Dalmatian flanks. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor.
Yeah.
And that offer is only valid for new Factor customers with the code JCE50off and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. And there you go. Food at half price. Who's going to argue with that in this troubled time we live in?
It's delicious food. I'm telling you, I got to get more. Chef prepared.
You got to get more.
Chef prepared. And for those of you who don't want to rely on your wife's cooking, this is a wonderful option, a delicious option.
Oh, come on now.
Packed
Now,
with protein.
Is she going to hear you that you said that?
I whispered, but Factor, once again, that promo code JCE50 off.
At least you're not on tape. All righty. Well, speaking of being on tape, the next thing they put on tape on AEW is Claudio Castagnoli against Roderick Strong for 15 minutes with entrances. By the end of it, I thought the audio had gone out, but I could still hear the announcers. That just meant the people had checked out. And Claudio won with an uppercut. So it's kind of like a WWF match.
I wish we had quarter-hour ratings for this specific segment, because there's no way this didn't hemorrhage viewers.
We'll never know about the hemorrhaging now with the new methodology.
Right, but as soon as you,
like,
you know, you've been a champion of both these guys, but when you see these guys right now come out for this match on this show, you groan.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just not appealing in any way.
You can make people meaningless if they're around in a meaningless fashion for long enough that even if they can wrestle, it doesn't matter. Then they had the comedy meeting at a restaurant somewhere for Don Fallis's birthday, where Andrade wasn't there. He didn't make the party. But also our friend Takeshit wasn't there because he was over in Japan, but he appeared on the screen that they had. Every restaurant has a screen for a live hookup with Japan. And the big happening was that Okada took the remote and turned him off while he was wishing Don happy birthday, but I pressed the wrong button. Because for some reason, Tony Khan believes that people are clamoring to see those two wrestle in this family of 15, middling nitwits.
Knowing Tony Khan, something stupid will happen. Like, it won't even happen in AEW. It'll happen at the Tokyo Dome.
Well, at least then we won't have to see it. So we got that hope to keep us going. And then they had a 6-man tag because remember, Andrade came out and knocked Kenny colder than a banker's heart here a few weeks ago. But now that Andrade is not allowed to be on TV and is probably going to go back to the WWE, and never will Kenny get even with what he did. They just put old Kenny in a 6-man tag. And it was Josh Alexander, Chia, and fat ass Mark Davis. He is still carrying a goddamn, tie red flags on it when he walks through catering. But they were going up against Jungle Jackoff, Dino Douche, and the original thespian of this troupe of vaudevillians, our friend Twinkle Toes McFingerbang himself. And they keep Perry out for a year and a half after trying to make him some kind of tough guy main event heel with a bread truck that he would drive around the country. Now he comes back and he's doing the same thing he was 5-6 years ago, as is the Lizard, who was off for being sick for however long and came back doing the exact same thing. And Kenny's stuck in the middle of them because at least it's the group of the friends. So this has nullified any box office potential that any of these people might have. Has it not? It's just, there it is.
Yeah, I don't know how much box office potential is there for any of this right now. The Andrade thing is embarrassing, though. The fact that this happened on their show and look at where we are today, that's embarrassing.
They could put Kenny in something because he has a name somewhat memorable, try to get somebody over that works for them, actually. They could have done something with the Lizard because he's the only one that's gotten a big pop since he's been back. Again, he's rotten, had that, but they were happy to see him. And then did you see what they did in this match, Brian, in one of the breaks? Remember what Adam Page did a couple weeks ago? We heard about it, where he tweeted to Warner Brothers Discovery and TBS and everything. They're running ice commercials. And you know how it is when the kids say the worst person you know just made a great point. Page actually stood up and tweeted, hey, you guys ought to be better than that and stop this bullshit running these commercials. So I got to admire him for that, if nothing else. And there is nothing else. However, having said that, they not only didn't stop the commercials, I fast forward through every break that I can, and I couldn't get away from them. They doubled it up. They outlawed cigarette advertising in 1971, but 50 years later, you can still advertise for hired thugs and wannabe bounty hunters and militia fuckwits to kidnap people off the streets for money. Then you can advertise it on national television, and they're giving these assholes $50,000 signing bonuses, benefits, forgiving student loans. And they're targeting the advertisements to, hey, law enforcement, AKA cops that have been kicked off the force for being assholes and violating people's rights. You want to keep doing what you like to do? Come work for us for a bunch of money. The government can't stay open because the Republicans want to set fire to everybody's health care. They cut funds for kids' cancer research so Schittler could build a gold ballroom, but they can pay these fucking pigs to cosplay as soldiers and harass and kidnap and push people around and give them $50,000 signing bonuses. I'm glad to see that the priorities in our country are still the way they've always been.
Hey,
Back to the 6-man tag.
regardless of the issue, if you're a promoter, do you want your top star sending out a public message to the station that airs you, the only station that airs you, saying, hey,
I have never in my life heard of an instance where I could possibly agree with that until now. No, as a matter of fact, hold on. Well, it wasn't really the same type of deal, but in OVW, we got, with our deal with the station, we got 8 minutes of commercial time, and they got 4 minutes for quite some time. And then I turned on the TV one night, and all 4 of their, because we were selling our time and fucking, we had our sponsors. All 4 of their minutes were filled up with ads, with commercials for gay 800 fucking sex lines. And I didn't think that was the image that we wanted to be fucking producing there or promoting. Not that there's anything wrong with gay people talking about sex on the phone, but I didn't want to see these goddamn commercials on my show. So we went and made a deal and bought the rest of the commercial time. So we didn't have to have porn advertisements. But otherwise than that.
And you know what? That's one of those things that actually, if Tony Khan wanted to make a statement, could work right now. Tony Khan can afford that, to buy up that ad time. If it's national, see, I don't know how much of that's national versus local. I'm assuming it's national.
It's got to be national.
Yeah, Tony could buy it up.
Because I haven't seen these commercials on any program here locally in Louisville. But yeah, and also, again, by the way, here in Louisville, they had a Department of Justice consent decree against the Louisville Metropolitan Police Department because they shot Breonna Taylor and killed her. And the pattern of racial discrimination and abuse of power and thuggery and various things. And everybody thought, okay, well, they'll keep him in line now. And guess what Schittler did? His Department of Justice said, no, you don't have to fucking worry about that anymore. You can be as shitty as you want to be to people. So they've actually here had to have an independent group come in and say, we're going to be the ones that are overseeing the Louisville Police Department so that the fucking local citizens wouldn't goddamn get up in arms again and cause problems. And now they're advertising to these kind of cops that get kicked off the fucking force. Hey, you still want to cosplay and be some kind of soldier of fortune? Yeah, you can carry a weapon and push people around. Come on over and we'll pay you a bunch more money. That's going to work out well.
But again, to my question, notwithstanding whether Adam Page is right or not.
Oh, it's going to get him heat, but it should. And Tony should make an announcement. I have bought that commercial time so you don't have to, our fans don't have to watch this kind of shit. But he won't. But that would be a use of his money instead of fucking signing cripples for millions. Back to the 6-man tag. So it was about 20 minutes there. And then, oh my God. Jungle Jack and Dino hit the Doomsday Device on Chi-Chi-Chia. And they won. And then the Hardley boys ran in and super kicked Jack and super kicked Dino and went to Tombstone Jack, but Kenny stopped them. And then they argued again at this point. They're arguing. He's a babyface. They're heels. What are they arguing about? Punch some motherfucker. It's just this wishy-washy. We used to be friends. Well, they're beating up your partners. So then Dino leveled the Buckaroos and Jack did a backflip onto all of them without Kenny doing anything, which is probably the safest thing they could do with Kenny. And that was that. Did you enjoy Blue Sky versus Jamie Hayter?
You know, I just couldn't, I couldn't bring myself to, I was so excited for the match that I had to leave the room and do something else for a while.
Yes.
Actually, that makes it sound perverted. That makes it sound perverted. What I meant was I didn't give a shit and I didn't watch it.
You went out of the room to ignore it.
That's right.
But you came back for the 6-man tag team title match, right?
I believe so.
Dralistico, Rush, and Rigor Mortis with Sammy Guevara in their corner, because now Sammy, one of the pillars, Sammy Guevara. Oh, I wish Ernie Ladd was still alive. Sammy Guevara, you dumbed yourself right out of position. He has worked himself all the way into where he is a member of a multiple person mid-card group in Ring of Honor. And they challenged.
He's the Ring of Honor Ricochet.
Yes. And even more annoying, apparently, because at least Ricochet gets on the main show. And they're the group of Los Fuckers and Goobers. And they challenged the 6-man tag team champions, poor Powerhouse Hobbs, Shapoopy, and Samoa Joe. Yes, that's right. The guy that is wrestling for the world heavyweight title of this company on pay-per-view this weekend came out with a meaningless belt with prelim partners against interchangeable masked guys in a title that nobody cares about. And he is also on the pay-per-view wrestling a babyface champion, but is the babyface here in this match against a bunch of heels. And Adam Page, the champion, is on color to watch this mess. So after about 10 minutes, Joe choked out Dralistico. And then the jobber preliminary heels attacked the baby faces. Samoa Joe and Hobbs, much less Shapoopy, he's just there, but these guys couldn't whip Joe and Hobbs together. And they're kicking the Joe is challenging for the world title, but they got to tell a story. So while the heels, these mid-card heels, are kicking the shit out of Joe, Rush leans out and for no reason spits at Adam Page. And Page said, well, okay then. And he gets up and he takes his jacket off, and he had the belt, the world title belt, in his hand. But he had to put the belt down to take the jacket off. But then before he goes to the ring, he picks the belt back up and then he takes it in the ring and he puts it down. So he put it on the apron for no reason. He carried it to the ring for no reason, because if he rolls into the ring to beat up the heels, he's got a goddamn weapon in his hand. But he put the weapon down before he started the fight. Then he beat up the heels, and then Joe picks up the belt and hands it firmly to Page, like Page did to him, which started this whole thing a week ago. And they've hated each other ever since. What the fuck?
And again, there are fans that'll swear that Adam Page is a good promo, that he's the face of the company, he's the future of the company. The promos in this feud with Samoa Joe haven't made much sense. Unfortunately, until you brought it up, I forgot we had a pay-per-view this weekend that we have to watch. So we'll talk about that afterwards, but not a great build. This show sucks. I'm sorry if I have no enthusiasm, and if you're listening and you're like, Brian's not adding much. This show sucks. It's hard to watch.
Well, it was over at that point. Dynamite was, but Collision wasn't, because since they've got a pay-per-view on Saturday, they did their Collision from 10 to 11. So the show that nobody watches on Saturday gets what one would think would be its optimum lead-in on Wednesday. And at 10 o'clock on Wednesday night, when Collision started, and they had a chance for somebody to watch this fucking thing, they led with Danny Garcia and Wheeler Useless at the top of the hour, when they already have ratings dropping like turds in a toilet because of the new methodology and their general product. And they started the show with those two against Kyle O'Reilly and Pockets. Chaos in kindergarten. And as much as I'm a fan of Kyle O'Reilly, he's never been the most cosmetically pleasing when it comes to athletic bodies. And he's the biggest one of the bunch of these. Wheeler is just a schlub. Garcia has had the same physique and tone and everything about him he's had for since they started shoving him down our throats, and there's pockets. This is the way you start at the top of the hour in prime time. And 20 minutes later, the match was over, and here came Dick the Boozer and the rest of the Horsemen. And they beat up the baby faces until here came Roderick Strong and Ishii, and the heels beat them up. And then Moxley gets in the ring with the microphone, but he never has a chance to say anything because Darby's music plays. Remember when he was bounced off the goddamn walls of the holding cell at the visitation room at the jail? Now he comes out staggering and drops to his knees on the stage, and he's got his face is still painted partially, like he always, I guess he walks around, goes to goddamn Hooters like that, or Walgreens or whatever. And he's still bleeding. However long ago that was in the day, he has not stopped to say, maybe I could just check my cut and wipe the blood off my face. And he's crawling down the ramp to get at Moxley because, they got the big I Quit match coming up. And I'm never going to quit. And then Pac comes down and kicks him. And he keeps crawling. And then Garcia and Useless, they start kicking the shit out of him. And then they stop and he does more crawling. And he's almost to the ring now. And then Marina Shafir comes around and she kicks him. And he starts reaching up on the apron. Okay, here's the thing. Why did all of them stop kicking him if he wouldn't stop moving? They kick him 2 or 3 times and now he's still crawling. Well, shit, he's away from me now. Guess the next person will have to get. Why didn't they just keep kicking him? But then he crawls over the apron and into the ring. And suddenly all the baby faces that got beat up earlier are all fine at the same time, and they jump all the heels and they all fight off. Just right away. And then Darby's on his knees in front of Moxley. And Darby, out of his hoodie, takes the AEW flag that he took to the top of Mount Everest that means so much to him. And he spread the flag out and he took the microphone from Moxley and he said, "It's never too late to say I quit." And then he looked up he's on his knees and he looked up at Moxley and he put his hands behind his back and he dared Moxley to hit him. Yes, I know it is the stupidest thing you've ever seen in your life, but even if it was somehow apropos, the girls just both did it 2 hours ago. These are the goddamn stupidest fighters I've ever seen. How do they ever win? When they get in front of a motherfucker and on their knees and put their hands behind their back and say, "Hit me. Go ahead, hit me." What the fuck is the matter with these people? And Moxley picks him up and gives him the DDT on the flag and walks off and leaves him. One of the first things that I ever learned in the wrestling business was don't let your baby face look stupid. This baby face is a moron. He deserves whatever he gets. He doesn't, he comes out and he doesn't even try to fight the fucking guy. He says, "Here, beat me up some more. You fucking idiot." The idea of being in the fight is not only to win the fight, but to let the other guy do as little damage as possible. They make every baby face that they have in this company look like a complete imbecile. And most of the time, it's the baby faces doing it to themselves because they think this is somehow part of the indie movie they're making. Am I exaggerating this?
No. And again, we're talking about the same culprits from earlier, Moxley and Darby, who were the two biggest examples of this. Darby gets away with it a lot because he's a quirky character, but his whole gimmick is based around, you could do anything to me, you can't hurt me enough to stop me. Which makes you wonder why no one tried to break any of his bones.
Well, that's the thing is, at some point there has to be a line you draw where, now I'm going to try to stop you from hurting me, but you can't hurt me, but I'm going to try to stop you. You can't just be a fucking idiot. I know he's a hero to people who lived in their cars because it gave them motivation. But other normal people look at that and say, you're a fucking stupid motherfucker, aren't you? He actually said that in an interview. Somebody sent me the clip of it. He said, well, I lived in my car for motivation. Got a lot of people, they just be in their car scrolling on their phone. If you've got a phone you can scroll on, but you're living in your car, you have misallocated your fucking funds, pal, for one thing. But they just did. That's even if this was a thing that you would want your baby face to do. Here, heel that has done everything to be possible to do to another motherfucker. Now that you're in front of me, just take another free shot. Even if that was a thing to do, the girls just did it in the same fucking show. So how did that come up? Is there an epidemic of, I sacrifice myself? Would you like to move on?
Yeah, I hope the I Quit match this weekend really is the end. I hope someone quits, because I'm going to quit.
I hope they both quit. I mean, turn in their resignations notarized, because this is ridiculous.
And what did Darby say? It's never too late to say I quit?
To the guy that he then says, okay, I'm going to do nothing physical to you whatsoever. Kick me in the fucking teeth if you want to. I'm right here. But you can say I quit anytime you want. What's he think Moxley's going to do? Hurt his fucking foot on Darby's ass? All right. Then FTR, the ghost of the greatest tag team in the world, the shadows of their former selves who have been reduced to meaningless mid-card mediocrity, whatever the case. They're in the ring with Stokely and Megan Brain, and now we figured out Megan Brain can't work and she can't talk either. That's why she looks like that, and she's in that company. Boy, howdy. She was the biggest person in the ring, counting the manager and both the male tag team. And she sounds like Sable trying to do a promo. I swear to God. I don't know if she wrote this one herself, like Statlander, if somebody wrote it for her, but she delivered it like she was speaking a foreign language for the first time, with all the feeling of a coma patient. And then there's the manager standing next to her, and they let her lead off and twist in the wind with this promo. And they were talking about Willow and Spitball and Knight. And then Stokely took over a little bit. And then Dax. And Dax, he's lost to people so bad. Now they get to him. Every time Dax starts talking, the fans start hooting at him, not because they're even doing the Dominic Mysterio thing now, but because they legitimately don't want to hear what he has to say. And these guys were the most over team in the company a couple of years ago, and the best performers. And they were hot when the music would hit. The people would pop. It's FTR. And they have neutered them like goddamn Bob Barker's fucking bulldog. And now the people, and he's made such a heel of himself, given the rah-rah for the company and being whiny about it when people point out that, yeah, the show sucks. It's not your fault, dude. It's not their fault the show sucks. The show has drugged them down. But when you argue with people that are saying the show sucks, then they don't want to hear him. They don't care. They don't care about this issue, the fans. Here comes Willow and Knight and Hong Kong Phooey, and Harley Cameron now is with Willow. And they're on the screen and acting goofy and making faces and doing bad comedy. And then they say, well, we're just going to go to the ring. And then within 2 seconds, they're in the ring. They appear behind Megan and they drop her. And then FTR have to turn around and stand there and stare and watch Kevin Knight and Steamboat's daughter climb to the top rope and double drop kick them. Stokely bailed out, so the 4 baby faces beat up the 3 heels. And then they started the match between Megan Brain and fucking Harley. And I said, oh no. Oh, fucking no. There was 23 minutes left on the air. I'd seen enough. I don't know what else happened in the program. I could give a shit. And there was FTR fucking around with a giant green girl and children. Blah.
That's what they wanted.
Well, they didn't want it, but I have to think no matter what happened in the other place, they would have been better off and more seriously presented. It would almost have to be. And by this point, Jesus Christ, is there any way they could call Triple H up and see if the goddamn lawn needs mowed? Or maybe they just want to just get this money and then just say, fuck it, and look at the deer in Asheville. And I couldn't blame them for that. If they're ready to be done with the wrestling business, they're fine where they're at. They're going to get paid and they don't have to mean anything. If they want to be in it past this contract, they're almost worthless.
And the fans don't want to hear Dax. They got to keep Dax off the microphone. It doesn't help in any way.
I don't know. They want to hear Megan. I don't know. They want to hear Cash.
They wanted to hear Megan more than Dax. They didn't boo her until she shut up, and then she started fighting with the hecklers. That's what happened with Dax. He started fighting with the hecklers.
He's letting them get to him. It throws him off, and he can tell, and they're doing it more, and it's just feeding on itself. Because you can tell he gets defensive.
Yeah. Well, that was AEW Collision. And
it certainly was.
Jim, in ratings news, we have no ratings.
Well, good. Now, wait a minute. Is that an official statement, meaning nobody watched it, or we haven't got the ratings in yet?
That's a statement. That's a very funny question. That we don't have any ratings in. We don't have any overall numbers or quarter hours or any guarantees that anyone watched it, now that you say that.